Stay calm, Dad.
But just tell him the ambulance is on the way, so they'll be there here in a minute.
Okay. They'll be here in just a minute. The ambulance are on the way. He really needs oxygen.
He really needs oxygen?
Yeah, real bad.
Real bad?
Dad can't breathe. What this 5-year-old did next left the 911 dispatcher in tears. Sometimes the smallest voice delivers the most urgent call, and what begins as a child's terror ends as a daughter's courage, proving that heroes come in the smallest packages when love conquers fear. The Tuesday evening began like any other in the small Indiana home. Dinner finished, dishes washed, 5-year-old Savannah in her pajamas ready for bedtime stories with Dad. Her father, Frank Carter, a 42-year-old construction worker, settled onto the couch to read her favorite dinosaur book, not knowing these would be his last normal moments. At 7:47 p.m., mid-sentence about a T-Rex, Frank's chest seized. Pain exploded through his body, sharp, crushing, stealing his breath. The book tumbled from his hands. His face went white. Savannah's thoughts raced with confusion, turning to terror. Dad never acts like this. Dad is strong. Dad is supposed to protect me. But now, Dad looks scared. And when Dad is scared, something is very, very wrong. She'd learned to call 911 in kindergarten. The teacher said it was for emergencies. This felt like an emergency. Dad? Savannah's voice was small, frightened. What's wrong? Frank tried to speak, managed only gasps. His hand fumbled for his phone on the coffee table, dialed 911, pressed call. The dispatcher answered, 911, what's your emergency? Frank opened his mouth, but no words came, only desperate gasping, the sound of a man drowning on dry land. Sir? Sir? Can you hear me? What's your location? More gasping? Frank's eyes found Savannah pleading. Savannah understood without words. She took the phone from Dad's trembling hand, her small fingers clutching it like a lifeline, and spoke with a clarity that belied her 5 years. My dad can't hardly breathe. On the other end, dispatcher Jason Mills straightened in his chair. A child, alone with a medical emergency. This was every dispatcher's nightmare scenario, and this little girl was about to show him what courage really meant. 7:48 p.m. The call. Okay, hold on a second, Jason said, keeping his voice calm despite the alarm bells ringing in his head. Child caller, parent incapacitated. Critical situation. How old are you? I'm 5 years old. Savannah's voice trembled but held steady. Okay, what's your name? Savannah. Okay, Savannah, hold on, I'm getting them dispatched. Jason's fingers flew across his keyboard, entering the address from caller ID, dispatching ambulance and fire rescue. Okay, you need to come real fast. In Savannah's living room, Frank slumped against the couch, his breathing shallow and labored. His 5-year-old daughter stood before him, phone pressed to her ear, wearing her pink pajamas with dinosaurs on them, the same pajamas she'd wanted to wear to bed minutes ago when life was normal. Okay, Savannah, I have them on the way. Jason kept his voice gentle, reassuring. Is your daddy still awake? Savannah looked at her father's eyes, open but unfocused. Yeah. Okay. Is your front door unlocked, Savannah? Savannah turned to the door, then back to Dad. Is the front door unlocked? She asked him. Frank shook his head weakly. No, Savannah reported. Okay, Savannah, can you go unlock that front door for me? Sure. Savannah set the phone down carefully, ran to the front door on small feet, struggled with the lock her father had installed high to keep her safe. She dragged over her toy box, climbed up, unlocked it. 7:50 p.m. staying strong. Back with the phone, Savannah did something that would make Jason Mills tell this story for years. She comforted her dying father while still following dispatcher instructions. "Don't worry, Dad," she said, her voice breaking only slightly. "We're in our jams, and we're trying to go to bed but can't hardly breathe. Stay calm, Dad." Oh, to Jason, "They're just telling the ambulance is on the way, so they'll be there here in a minute." Jason listened to this 5-year-old girl who should have been terrified, should have been crying, should have been helpless, instead acting as liaison between him and her father, translator of medical emergency, comforter of the man who usually comforted her. "Okay, they'll be here just a minute," Savannah continued. Then urgency creeping into her small voice. "The ambulance is not on the way. He really needs oxygen. He really needs oxygen. Yeah, real bad. Real bad." Jason, who'd been a 911 dispatcher for 15 years, felt his throat tighten. "Can you ask him if this has ever happened before?" Savannah turned to Frank. "Has this ever happened?" Frank shook his head. No, so far so good." That phrase, "so far so good," would become Savannah's mantra, repeated throughout the call whenever Jason asked how her father was doing. A child's optimism in the face of adult terror. 7:52 p.m. The adorable crisis. In the middle of keeping her father alive, Savannah had a 5-year-old's moment of concern that would later make Jason smile despite the intensity. "He's so awake. We're in our jammies, and I'm in a tank top. So I'll have to get dressed." "Okay," Jason said gently. Understanding even in crisis, a child worries about appearing in pajamas before strangers. "I know what I'm going to wear, but he really needs to reel fast." Savannah's priorities shifted back immediately. "I'll be in my room and I'll be spraying on—" "Savannah," Jason interrupted, firm but kind. "I want you to stay there with your daddy, okay?" Okay. Compliance instant. "I need you to make sure that he stays awake. So, okay?" "I got that." 5 years old, accepting the responsibility of keeping her father conscious. 7:53 p.m., small details. "And we have a dog that's really, small, so he's friendly," Savannah added, thinking ahead to strangers entering their home. "He's friendly, okay? He kind of barks." "He kind of barks. That's all right, though." Jason appreciated these details, this child in crisis, still thinking about logistics, about the dog greeting paramedics, about wearing appropriate clothes. Her father had raised her well, now she was using those lessons to save his life. 7:54 p.m. The wait. The longest minutes of Savannah's young life ticked by. She stayed by her father's side, phone pressed to her ear, watching his labored breathing, his pale face, his chest rising and falling with difficulty. Come on," she whispered, whether to the ambulance or her father, Jason couldn't tell. Frank's eyes began to close. "Dad!" Savannah's voice rose with panic. "Stay awake! The dispatcher said you have to stay awake." Frank's eyes opened again, focusing on his daughter's frightened face. He tried to smile to reassure her, but could only manage a weak nod. "Is your dad okay still?" Jason asked, hearing the fear bleeding into Savannah's voice. "Yeah, okay. So far, so good." That phrase again, so far, so good. A 5-year-old's mantra against death. 7:56 p.m. The arrival sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Is the fireman there, Savannah?" Jason asked. Savannah ran to the window, saw the flashing lights. Yeah, they're here." Relief flooded Jason's chest. "They're there to help your daddy, so don't be scared, okay?" "Okay. Are they there?" Pounding on the door, Savannah ran to open it, phone still clutched in her hand. Paramedics rushed in, professional, efficient, taking over. One knelt beside Frank, checking vitals. Another asked Savannah rapid questions, name, age, what happened. Savannah answered each one, still holding Jason's line open. A paramedic took the phone gently. "This is fire rescue. We have the patient. Male, 42, suspected cardiac event. We're stabilizing now." "Copy that," Jason said. Then, "Is Savannah there?" "Yeah, she's right here." "Put her on." Savannah's voice came back, small and scared now that adults were handling things. "Hello? Hey, Savannah, you did a good job." "Okay." "All right, Savannah, you did a good job." "It's okay, guys," Savannah said to the paramedics, her voice carrying the weight of a child who just carried her father through his darkest moment. Jason ended the call, sat back in his chair, and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. In 15 years of dispatching, he'd never heard anything like that. 7:58 p.m., critical minutes. In the living room, paramedics worked with practiced urgency. Frank's heart was failing, a massive heart attack, the kind that killed quickly without immediate intervention. "BP dropping," one paramedic called out. 70/40. "Starting IV," another responded. Savannah watched from the corner, where a female paramedic had gently guided her, small and scared in her dinosaur pajamas, clutching her stuffed elephant. This was different from talking to Jason on the phone. This was real machines, needles. Her father being lifted onto a stretcher, oxygen mask over his face. "Is Dad gonna die?" she whispered. The female paramedic, Maria Santos, knelt to Savannah's level. "Your daddy's very sick, sweetheart. But you know what? You calling 911 when you did that might have saved his life. You were so brave." "I was scared," Savannah admitted, tears finally coming now that someone else was in charge. "Being brave means doing the right thing even when you're scared," Maria said. "And you were the bravest person I've seen all week." 8:02 p.m. Transport. They loaded Frank into the ambulance. Savannah ran after them, bare feet on cold concrete. "Wait, I want to go with Dad." Maria turned. "Sweetie, we need to work on your daddy in the ambulance. Is there someone we can call? Mommy? Grandma?" Savannah's face crumpled. "Mommy's at work. She's a nurse. She works at the hospital." "Which hospital?" "St. Vincent's." The paramedics exchanged glances. St. Vincent's, the same hospital they were rushing to. "Okay, honey," Maria said. "We're taking your daddy to St. Vincent's. That's where your mommy works. We'll call her to meet us. But we need you to stay here. Can a neighbor come stay with you?" "Mrs. Patterson next door," Savannah said. "She babysits me sometimes." Maria nodded to a firefighter. "Get Mrs. Patterson. Stay until she arrives." The ambulance doors closed. Sirens wailed. Savannah watched the lights disappear down the street, her father inside fighting for his life. 8:10 p.m. The wait. Mrs. Patterson, a grandmother in her 60s, arrived in her bathrobe, immediately wrapping Savannah in a hug. "Oh, sweetheart, I heard the sirens. Come on, let's get you some hot chocolate." But Savannah couldn't drink hot chocolate, couldn't sit still. She kept asking, "Is Dad okay? Did they make him breathe better? Is Mommy with him?" At St. Vincent's emergency room, Frank's wife, Sarah, a nurse who'd been working the late shift, got the call that changed everything. "Your husband's been brought in. Cardiac arrest. Your daughter called 911. Sarah's world tilted. Frank? 5 minutes ago, she'd been checking IV bags. Now she was running through ER corridors to the trauma bay, where her husband lay surrounded by doctors shocking his heart, trying to restart what had stopped. Clear! The defibrillator charged. Frank's body arched. The monitor flatlined. Then a beep. Another, a rhythm, weak but present. We got him back, the doctor said, but it's critical. Next 24 hours will tell. Sarah collapsed into a chair outside the trauma bay, head in her hands, mind on one thought. Savannah, her 5-year-old baby girl, had done this, had saved Frank, had been brave when Sarah wasn't even there. Day 1, morning reunion. At 6 a.m., Sarah returned home to find Savannah asleep on Mrs. Patterson's lap, exhausted from fear and crying. When Savannah woke and saw her mother, she burst into fresh tears. "Mommy, is Dad okay? Did I do good?" "The dispatcher said I did good, but I was so scared. Baby, shh." Sarah held her tight. "Dad's alive because of you. You were so brave." "Can I see him?" "Soon. He's sleeping now. The doctors are helping him get better." Day 2, hospital visit. When Sarah finally brought Savannah to the ICU, Frank was awake, weak, but awake. His eyes filled when he saw his daughter in her dinosaur pajamas. She'd refused to change. "Hey, baby girl." His voice was barely a whisper through the oxygen mask. Savannah climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of the wires and tubes. "I called 911 like they taught us in school." "You saved my life," Frank said, his voice breaking. "My brave girl." Week 1, the recording. Jason Mills, the 911 dispatcher, requested permission to share Savannah's call recording for training purposes. Frank and Sarah agreed with one condition. Savannah's courage should inspire other families to teach their kids emergency protocols. The recording went viral. Local news picked it up, then national, then international. 5-year-old saves father's life with calm 911 call appeared on news sites worldwide. Jason was interviewed, his voice still thick with emotion. "In 15 years, I've never heard anything like that. Most adults panic, but this 5-year-old girl stayed calm, followed instructions, comforted her father, and provided critical information. She's a hero." Month 1, recognition. The fire department invited Savannah to their station. They gave her a tour, let her sit in the fire truck, presented her with an honorary junior firefighter badge. "You know what firefighters do?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "Help people," Savannah said shyly. "That's right, and that's exactly what you did. You helped your daddy when he needed it most." Savannah smiled her first real smile since that terrifying night. Month 3, impact. Frank recovered completely. Bypass surgery, lifestyle changes, medication, but alive and home. Every night, he read Savannah bedtime stories, the same dinosaur book they'd been reading when his heart failed. But now, before each story, he'd say, "Thank you for saving my life, baby girl." And Savannah, now 6, would reply, "That's what family does, Dad." Schools across Indiana adopted new emergency education programs, teaching kindergartners what Savannah had known: how to call 911, how to stay calm, how to provide information. Savannah's call became training material for dispatchers nationwide. At a special ceremony, the mayor presented Savannah with the town's Courage Award. She stood at the podium in her best dress, not pajamas, microphone lowered to her height, and said what her mother had helped her prepare. "I was really scared, but my teacher said 911 helps people in emergencies, so I called, and they helped Dad. If your mom or dad or grandma needs help, you can call 911 too, even if you're little like me." The crowd rose in standing ovation. Firefighters, paramedics, dispatchers, community members, all applauding a 6-year-old girl who'd faced death and won. Frank stood in the front row, tears streaming, clapping for the daughter who'd given him life twice, once at birth, once at 7:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when his heart stopped beating and her courage kept him alive until help arrived. Sometimes the smallest voice delivers the most urgent call, and what begins as a child's terror ends as a daughter's courage, proving that heroes come in the smallest packages when love conquers fear. Savannah's story transformed emergency education nationwide. Schools implemented mandatory 911 training starting in kindergarten. The Savannah Protocol taught children not just to call, but to stay calm, provide information, and follow dispatcher instructions. Jason Mills became an advocate for child emergency preparedness using Savannah's recording and training sessions for new dispatchers. "This is what we're working toward," he'd say, "the moment when a child trusts us enough to help." Frank returned to work, but became a volunteer firefighter, teaching CPR and emergency response to families. His message: teach your kids. You never know when they'll be the only one who can help. Savannah grew up normal school, friends, gymnastics, but with a maturity that came from seeing life's fragility at 5. At her high school graduation years later, her valedictorian speech ended, "I learned at 5 years old that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when someone they love needs help." That's what I hope we all remember. The framed photo of 5-year-old Savannah in dinosaur pajamas, phone to her ear, hangs in the Indiana 911 Center, a reminder that heroes don't need capes. Sometimes they just need courage.